Well, hello and welcome. My name is Kim Levings. I'm the founder of Leader Print Executive Communities in South Africa and CEO of KimLevings.com. In my networking recently, I bumped into the most amazing woman, and she shared with me a vision of launching a new podcast. And I am honored to be doing this introductory episode with her and for her. The podcast is going to be called Scaling with Purpose Beyond Profit. And just by that title alone, you know that this is something that God has inspired. This is a show where faith meets strategy and kingdom-minded entrepreneurs learn to grow businesses that leave a lasting impact and honor God. The podcast was created, founded, and will be led by Brenda Hurudza, the founder and CEO of Be Advisory Global, and a passionate leader who I know is a kingdom-aligned entrepreneur. My goal today is to introduce you to Brenda to learn more about this podcast and why you want to be listening to it and adding it to your feed. So Brenda, you equip purpose-led businesses to scale with strategy, faith, and financial clarity, growing impact and not just income. Your vision for this podcast inspired me. So why don't you tell us why scaling with purpose and why now? Over to you, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Kim, for helping me to launch this podcast. We created this podcast because we noticed a gap. There are so many businesses that have conversation that only focus on money, and very few explore faith-driven strategy. So this content that we are going to bring in this podcast will be designed and focused to equip, to encourage, and also challenge the listeners to grow God's way with integrity, with vision, and practical tools.
That's fantastic. And, I know too that sometimes is the mechanics, and it's so needed by business today. But tell me a little bit about your pulse and your heart passion behind this launch.
Scaling with Purpose Beyond Profit is here to equip and encourage our listeners or our business people out there, to challenge them to grow God's way. I believe running a business in general is not only about creating profits or strategy. I believe it's also a spiritual journey. And by bringing this aspect within the business, I believe it aligns us to work in a specific way, pushes us to be people of integrity, vision, and coming up with practical tools that will help us to grow and take our businesses to the next level.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I think it's so necessary in today's world where, specifically when it comes to finances, many times kingdom-aligned leaders have to swim upstream against the socioeconomic culture that we live in. What do you think, what can listeners expect as far as content is concerned, Brenda? How are you going to construct the content of future episodes?
We are going to cover monthly themes covering different topics. And these topics will include faith-driven strategies, financial mastery, personal leadership, and innovation and global expansion. Each and every episode is designed to be short and practical as well as insightful. So we have minimized the podcast to around 15 to 20 minutes so that we can absorb actionable strategies without having to feel overwhelmed.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so many leaders these days are always in a hurry, right? Nobody has time to listen to a lot of content. So those are the perfect little sound bites. And I know too that you're going to bring in some practical strategies and not just the spiritual aspect. So well done for that. Who do you think is your ideal audience? Who should be listening to this podcast, Brenda?
This podcast is for entrepreneurs and leaders, but I also see it as a podcast for each and everyone, not necessarily entrepreneurs, but I believe anyone can actually benefit from this podcast. But when you're looking at it from the perspective of a business, we are saying business is a calling. It's not just a hustle. It's for those people who want to grow the revenue and obedience at the same time. So whether you are just starting or scaling globally, this is your space. If you are ready to lead with faith, this is your space. And if you are in a position to steward your gifts and build something that glorifies God, I believe you are at the right place. Entrepreneurs and leaders of private businesses are also the leaders that bring in the foundation of our future world and economies for sure. So I believe this podcast will help not only business leaders, but anyone who aspires to be a leader or anyone who is leading in an organization.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful, Brenda. Thank you so much. And I know that leaders are also inundated with content these days, and they have so many things available to them. Tell me a little bit about your unique voice and approach that's going to cause people to want to listen to you, perhaps ahead of others, depending on how God's called them.
We'll blend biblical insights with system thinking, business coaching, strategic frameworks. We won't just inspire, but we equip. I believe transformation is very critical for any business out there, but it's not really significant if there's no empowerment to it. That's where equipping comes into play. This is just theory. It's about testing the wisdom from our journeys and from guests who have built, how they've really grown from one level to the other, how they failed, how they stayed faithful, and also how they managed to remain resilient and steadfast until they got the results that they were hoping for.
So Brenda, do you also plan to tackle some of the practical concerns of business leaders, some of the topics that they are dealing with on a daily basis?
Yes, we are going to tackle hard topics such as cash flows, confidence, calling, and also how to hear from God when the numbers don't make sense.
Oh, so important. So important, because I think sometimes we forget we have a practical God who is very involved with our numbers. So I love that you're going to address that. So how do you think listeners can get involved with this podcast?
We want this podcast to be conversational, not just a monologue. So join our community WhatsApp group that we are going to create specifically for this podcast, where listeners can actually ask questions, share wins, and grow alongside other kingdom-minded leaders. We'll share with you the link below the notes.
Right. And we'd encourage people to subscribe and leave a review and get involved. I know when you first start a new podcast, it takes word of mouth. So I encourage the listeners, if you listen to this and you're encouraged and you know of somebody who should be listening, pass the link on and help Brenda grow this. So I know that I'll certainly be adding it to my feeds. I think it's going to be a powerful and much needed contribution to the business community. Brenda, what are your final thoughts? Some final thoughts about why you're excited about this podcast.
Yes, your business is a seed. When planted in purpose and stewardship, when planted with strategy, it produces legacy, wealth, and kingdom impact.
Oh, powerful. Thank you, Brenda. And thank you for those of you listening to this. I was honored to do this brief introductory episode to help Brenda launch this and get it out the gate. When I first spoke to Brenda, it was an idea buried in a drawer. And here we are giving birth to it. So thank you for your support.